there a committee of adjustment after?
Yes,
And what time? 7:30?
right.
Okay.
Dan will be with us in a couple minutes.
Okay.
So you're welcome to stay if you want to.
Okay,
Who are we missing? Just Dan?
and Yvonne.
Oh, Yvonne.
Uh,
That's funny.
Should
We
I
have
should I
put
call
on-
him on? Should I call him?
I already spoke with him and notified him that we had planning this evening, so he's aware.
Okay, so we'll start and he can join if he wants later on.
He's having a romantic dinner.
Yeah, well, he's a smart one. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? None?
None.
I move on a seconder for the agenda, please. Chris? Oh. It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Joanne Savage. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of February the 14th, 2022 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Hey, Mr. Ravita.
I am sorry, Mr. President. I was having trouble with my
I don't know.
Wi-Fi.
Saint Valentine, you never know it.
Yeah.
I don't know what you were doing. I don't want to know what you were doing.
No. I was having trouble with my.
Okay, we'll move on. I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of January 10th. Chris and Fern.
It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Fern Pellerin. Be it resolved that the minutes of the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on January the 10th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
All in favor? Carried. So tonight, I guess we only have one zoning amendment on the agenda.
Is
So
correct.
pardon?
That is correct.
I'll go through my little spiel there, and so what we'll do is go through the amendment with the committee and any consultant that's involved. Then we'll open the floor up to the public or any comments and if you need some French, if you want to speak French, that's fine. We can translate later on or as we go, as I should say. So I think that's it. And so we'll move on to 2022-02. I need a mover and a seconder.
Just before we do that, Mr. Duran, are you there? I think I see your phone number.
Yeah, I'm here.
I thought so, just checking.
Okay.
I don't know how to get. I don't know how to get on my pad. I don't know. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, and can I get a mover and a seconder for the zoning amendment, Norm? Yes.
Yvonne?
It is moved by Norman Leberge and seconded by Chris Fisher. Whereas a public meeting was held for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45 for property located at 116A Nature's Trail Road in Noelville. And whereas no written concerns or objections have been received, be it resolved that the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee recommends or does not recommend that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopt the proposed zoning bylaw to rezone the property located at 116A Nature's Trail Road, Noelville, from shoreline residential to shoreline residential exception zone 14. Schedule M1 of bylaw 2014-45 shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the properties, which properties are more particularly described as part of Lot 8, Concession 1 in the Township of Faulkner. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is an application. This is an existing legal non-conforming property with, as you can see, 2 dwellings, as well as a variety of outbuildings on the property. The purpose and effect of this application is to separate the existing dwellings from each other such that each of the owners would have their own dwellings, in addition to legalize the existing non-conforming nature of some of the buildings and structures on the property with respect to setbacks. And to recognize the, like I said, the existing situations as they are today. I don't know, Mr. Miller, do you have anything else to add?
Just this property has been in the same family since the 1960s. And it was developed into two separate dwelling units and sometime in the 1970s and has continued on in that fashion ever since. Both dwellings function totally separate. There's separate septic systems and so on. And this is just the purpose of this is to clear up a family relationship, and so that the individual family members who occupy the different cottages can own them outright themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Robert.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Miller, looking at the drawings that were submitted, one shows the sketch for rezoning there and all the outline of the building, and it shows the driveway, which seems to be from Nature's Trail down, seems to be fairly long on the other side of the boundary. Then, and I think that will be at the other meeting, we have an application for a right of way, which seems to be just a very short portion. So could you explain me, are they moving the driveway that would be east to be mostly on the property, but then they would have to go around the building? So I'm a bit confused about the driveway access there. And I guess part of my question will be dealt at the committee of adjustment for the easement portion, but I'd like this to be explained there so I couldn't clear it in my head. I didn't have a chance to go there personally and to look at this situation with all the snow. I guess I would not have seen much anyway.
Yeah, you can't get there anyway because the bridge is being reconstructed.
Oh, that's
You
right.
gotta
No
walk
bridge.
2 kilometers in to see it. I know one of my staff went and put the sign up, but I'm sure nobody saw it. Yeah, the driveway to the most westerly dwelling is on the adjoining property to the west.
Mhm.
I don't know what they're doing about it. I know there is another application in on the adjoining property, but I am not doing that. Someone else is doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's another consultant who's dealing with that application. So, I mean, there is room. They could, if they had to, move the driveway onto this property. They'd have to, relocate a shed or something to bring it down to the dwelling, but there certainly is room off Nature's Trail that the driveway could be moved.
So there's, by supporting this application, we're not creating any access problem for the western portion, the severe portion there. That's what I look at that on the weekend. I said, are we creating somebody a problem there, trying to solve one?
No, I mean, whether they got a right of way from the adjoining owner through consent or something, that they could possibly do that, or they could relocate the driveway onto their own property, but there's certainly room.
Okay, so thank you for providing that information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Miller, prior to this separation, they were using this driveway on the west side anyways, right?
Yeah, from my understanding, they've been using it for many decades. That's always been where the driveway is.
Must be some kind of agreement somewhere.
There may just be a mutual agreement, or they may not have realized where the property lines are. Certainly, the rear corners quite a ways north of Nature's Trail Road and stuff. Yeah. These properties were surveyed back in the 1940s, 1950s. So, the property lines aren't really visible.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments, Fern?
You're on mute for,
Fern.
Fern.
Yes, Mel? On page 4 in your summary, I guess it's just a typo. It's the property, they rezoned the property from rural to SR. I guess it should be.
No, that's a typo. My apologies. It should be SR to SR 14. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Any other comments or hearing none, I guess we'll, I think it's been recommended by the clerk to accept this, and so everybody in favor or anybody against?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes. Who's this?
Mr. Chair, it's Yvonne.
All
Yvonne join.
right. Recognize.
Norm brought up a good point with respect to that road being on the far west. If we accept this, maybe there should be an amendment saying that it is accepted if, but we are not, basically involved with the changes of or amended of the roadway, and that, we will accept it when it would be completed or something of that nature, so that it protects us. Does that make any sense, Norm?
Madam Clerk?
I think you're speaking of the encroaching driveway, Mr. Duhane?
Yes.
yeah,
I believe that the committee at the next meeting could probably impose that as a condition of severance because there's a concurrent application to sever the property, and that might be a better opportunity to place that condition.
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
just to clarify the clarity, now we're dealing only with the zoning definition, but the actual completeness of that will take later at the other meeting at the committee adjustment level. And but I just wanted the planning committee members to be aware that I had some concern about the driveway, and now all the members are aware of the same thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rebels. So if there's no more comments, we'll continue on to the voting. So everybody who's in favor? Carried.
Okay. Next item, and I don't want to belabor this conversation very long because we want to move on and have a conversation tonight about the short-term rental accommodations, because I think there's some people with us tonight who'd like to have be part of the conversation. So I tried as best I could, rewatch the meeting and tried to summarize all the conversation we had at the last meeting and pare it down into the simplest possible means so that we can make a recommendation to council. I just wanted to make sure that I got it right before we pass the resolution to make the recommendation. Obviously, this is going to go to council. Council can further have this conversation at the council table. But for now, are we comfortable with the proposed changes?
Madam Clerk, I have a question about I don't see anything for commercial properties.
Yeah, I removed.
Are they in there, or did I miss
I
them?
removed, they were previously prohibited. So in section 4.2.11, it no longer includes commercial as prohibited.
Okay.
So they are permitted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So any other comments or from the firm?
Yeah. I had a couple people ask me about it, coming back to existing use before the bylaw, like for the bus used for hunt camp and stuff like that. You mentioned that there'd be something in black and white that would say.
I can put it into the document before it goes to council. I forgot about that, Mr. Perrin. I'll
Okay.
make a note here on my memo to make sure that it is implicit in the bylaw amendment.
Because I know a few people that's got those. Some have a transport container, stuff like this. And I can just imagine once the bylaw passes, it's just gonna take somebody to complain and they're up shit creek.
No, it's always, it's right at the beginning in the first section of our bylaw that talks about anything that was there before. It's right in the beginning part of our bylaw, and that applies also to any amendments to the bylaw. So pre-existing situations are not affected by the updates.
Okay, it's not in
We wouldn't put it in this document because this document is actually going to change pieces, of different parts of the bylaw.
okay.
But I'll make sure that it is very clear that that is the intent of the bylaw for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the committee?
And for those who are, I just wanted to point out, Mr. Chair, that for those who, obviously, this is a document that will go to council for further discussion before being adopted or not in this form or in some other form that council may choose. And then there is obviously, once council has adopted it in whatever form, then that is when the notices of passing and the statutory appeal periods and whatnot begin. So this reminder that this is a recommending committee, not a formal adopting committee. This committee is just here to make recommendation to council. So the formal adoption of the amendment would take place at the council table. So anyways, I need a mover and a seconder for the resolution.
No, Denny?
Mr. Chair, I did
Sorry,
have a question.
Sorry.
Glenn?
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the comment pertaining, just the question of board member, Mr. Pellerin. I was under the impression that buses were presently prohibited.
They are.
So if they are presently prohibited with the changes to the zoning changes that are being recommended, it means that they remain prohibited.
That's right, but as we're not going looking for them.
No, but I just want to highlight so it's clear that we don't mislead people.
No,
If you're not allowed to have a bus today with the proposed changes
you can't have one tomorrow.
and you can't have one tomorrow, bottom line,
But if you've
It
always
means-
had one since
Yeah.
before the passing of the bylaw in 2014,
That's it.
then you're still grandfathered.
okay, so
Yeah.
what we're saying is
Yeah.
that the individual needs to prove that it was there before 2014.
Yes.
Okay,
And I'm not
I
checking
just
the
want to
serial
make
number
sure
on your
people
bus
understand.
card.
Because I know a lot of people do listen to these meetings and they're gonna say, well, we're okay because we had it there before the zoning bylaw change, but prior to the zoning bylaw change, it was still prohibited. So we're talking about 2014.
Yeah.
Perfect. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Joanne. That's a good point. I think, holy geez, a lot of, you good?
Yeah.
We should make it clear in the bylaw that it's before 2014 that your grandfather sort of.
Our comprehensive bylaw does have a paragraph right at the beginning that talks about existing situations on the date of passing of this bylaw. That was taken care of. So these are amendments to our overall comprehensive bylaw. So the terms of our comprehensive bylaw as it was in 2014 still stand.
It's not clear though, but whatever, that's okay. Any other comments or
So
is
can,
anybody in line waiting for comments for this part? Or Melanie, do you know?
I believe there's a gentleman who has raised his hand, but someone raised their hand?
I missed
Hey,
it. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Michael Roy here. I just want to be sure that we're on the topic of short-term rentals. I'm having a hard time telling from
Not
the
yet.
discussion so far.
Not yet.
Okay,
no.
thank
Not
you.
yet. We're getting there.
Thank you.
We're just doing a bit of housekeeping from a previous meeting.
Excuse me, can I speak from the public?
Yes, sir.
Can I get
Just
your
state-
name?
My name is Bob Jolly, and I'm from Clear Lake. And I think I think I'm speaking for most of the people that would be listening. I think it's inappropriate for the board members to be crafting laws to control situations in their own circumstance. Like if an existing planning person has a school bus on his property, which is illegal, I don't think it's appropriate to use this venue to continue that so he can continue to break the law. Can I have some comments on that?
I don't think that was the intent. We were not addressing that particular subject in this bylaw amendment, Mr. Jolly. I believe that arose as a side conversation, but the prohibition to that particular situation hasn't been altered at all by this amendment.
No, it hasn't been altered. And I think that's the point the mayor was trying to make. If the council or one of the people on the board has something that's in breach of the bylaw now, this new bylaw is not going to protect him, correct?
I think if I can speak on that, we were saying that if the bus was there before 2014, he's not in contravention of the bylaw as per se. He's might be not agreeable with the present bylaw, but he's grandfathered before 2014. That's the way I see it. Is that clearing it up, Mr. Joly, or?
I think I understand where you're coming from now, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You set to move on there, Melanie?
Yeah, I'll just quickly read the resolution. I had a mover, I just needed a seconder. It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Norm Pellerin, whereas at a public meeting was held for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45, and whereas written concerns and objections were received and considered, be it resolved that the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality enact the following changes to zoning bylaw 2014-45 as shown on Schedule A, and that was attached to the resolution.
All in favor? Carried.
Now, we're moving on to short-term rental accommodations.
Can I just, before we move on to the next subject matter, my apologies, Mr. Chair, through you, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the vote for the resolution was unanimous. Everyone supported the resolution?
Look that way.
Okay, thank you. Just I wasn't keeping track. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Melanie?
Okay, so, and I know it's taken us a couple of weeks to get there, and I want to first of all thank the people on the line for their patience. We've had a lot on the go lately, and the meetings just seem to fly by. So what we were discussing, and this was brought up, I believe, by member Reberge, perhaps last year, if I recall correctly. Right. And I had promised that I would bring a report back, and we did have some concerns raised by some residents in the municipality, and it seemed like the opportune time to bring the issue of short-term rental accommodations to this committee to determine whether or not the committee is, ultimately it's a land use decision which has impact on both zoning and other land use. It also has an impact on perhaps other bylaws that we have already in place, such as noise and parking and things like that. And however, for the most part, it falls under land use. And I know that a number of municipalities are impacted. People have always rented out cottages and camps and whatnot via ads in the paper, notices on the board at the grocery store or whatever. However, the advent of online reservation services, which have taken place in the last few years, I'll use Airbnb as the one that comes most to mind, has really taken this pros this situation to a different level where, you know, people are optimizing the use of these apps in order to rent out their places. And, you know, most of the time, I think it goes really well. However, sometimes it doesn't. And I know that municipalities are all over the province are looking at ways in which they can or cannot regulate this sort of activity because it is kind of touchy because these are private dwellings owned by people who, you know, who own them and pay taxes on them. And, you know, as a result, do have certain rights as to what they can do with their properties. So all that to say, some municipalities are choosing to outright ban it, which I think it would be probably very difficult given that I said earlier, everybody's been doing it for years anyways and under different means. But I think that most municipalities are looking at some kind of regulation, you know, and whether or not this committee wants to look at how we want to regulate. Do we want to license them? Do we want to create special zones? You know, do we want to create, you know, a bylaw, a standalone bylaw, which would regulate, you know, because there are concerns that are raised and, you know, people who live in a neighborhood where, you know, there's, you know, families on either side and there's perhaps a property in between them that is used, you know, perhaps every weekend throughout the summer, rented out to multiple people for, you know, different activities, be they, you know, recreational activities. It does create a disruption. I'm not gonna dispute that fact, and I understand that people, you know, would feel like their privacy and general peace would be disrupted by, you know, strangers in their backyard every weekend. But there's probably a middle ground somewhere that can be, I guess, reached where, you know, there's fairness to the property owners and also fairness to the residents adjacent as well. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let the committee have a conversation about what they see as, you know, as a solution or I guess I don't want to use the word solution, a compromise that will, you know, accommodate everybody in a way that's respectful and, you know, how keeps everybody happy.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll proceed to comments from the committee. Mr. Robert, Joanne, and Yvonne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, since I'm the one who brought this to the committee's attention in the first place, maybe I should explain why I did it. Is that over the course of this, especially the last summer, I received a lot of complaints, not from people that were renting, let's say for one couple, an extra building, no problem. It's just that some would rent the building to, and then a whole crowd would show up, 8, 10, 12 people in a small cabin that was designed for a 2-3 person occupation. And they would party, okay, you can call the law enforcement and complain that under the noise control bylaw and do this, but it was creating a lot of, you know, in neighborly arguments and people not comfortable. And they said, we pay taxes on each side, you know, beside that property. We want our peace and quiet. And then half a busload of people come from down south. They don't mind paying $1,000 for a week, and they just turn the place into, you know, a circus. So I can. And secondly, my daughter-in-law last summer, she spent 2 months in BC living in STA like that, and the municipality there had a strict ruling that if the building was originally designed for 2 person, like field bed, water and all, that's how the amount of people that were permitted. And she was warned, only you and your husband can stay here this summer. If you break the law, you get evicted and you don't get a refund. And she enjoys it. It was nice and quiet. They spend a nice, So that's why I brought it here. I think myself, I can see that waterfront properties usually pay double the taxes that other people pay, let's say in a regular rural setting or whatever it is. So if they can earn a bit of money, being a bit of a capitalist myself, I support making money. So I can see that, but they should not deprive their neighbors of the enjoyment of their property. That's why I'm saying that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Roberge. Joanne is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know where board member Mr. Roberge is coming from because I did receive the similar complaints and similar issues. Unfortunately, I had read an article about a municipality that had adopted a special zoning category for short-term rentals. And that could be an opportunity that we can look at, because at the end of the day, when you have cottagers where they conduct, if you have businesses, their classification and the level of taxes that they pay is at a different scale. And short-term rental, in the last couple of years during COVID, we've seen waterfront property bought from individuals that have no plan residing there year-round. The objective is to be able to rent it and to rent it to any given groups. And it's considered, sort of a business. So why should they be paying the same level of taxes as an individual that remains waterfront and they are permanent residents? So I think we need the regulation portion to control, like Mr. Roberge was identifying, the quality of life, but we also have to look at maybe considering a new classification when it comes to short-term rentals, and that it's recognized, and hopefully even a special class rate on whether or not if they would qualify, if they should be deemed to be commercial.
Is that it, Joanne?
For now,
Okay,
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next is Yvonne and then Fern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too had received calls of concern. What we see here is that on every given week or any other week or any week during the summer, one does not know who's going to show up and how many are going to show up. There could be good people and there certainly could be bad people. And unfortunately, the neighbors on the other side have to deal with the bad people. And it is a disruptive situation. And what I think we should, and I'm not going to mention, like Joanne summed it up pretty good, as well as Norm. And I agree with their methods of how it should be done. It's a reasonable way of knowing. And, if there's only 2 bedrooms, you're only allowed X amount of people. And, it has to be controlled in some way. We can't allow them to come from down south and raise hell like they think they own it. Because when you rent, you basically do own it, and it's not right. So I think there should be a form of control. And I agree with that absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Next is Fern, then Dan.
Melanie, just a question. I'm just wondering, is it legal to prevent a third party from, like our Airbnb, to be involved in those short term? Why I'm asking you this, we used to own a lodge for 18 years. When you deal, the owner deals directly with the people are renting, you got a much better relationship, and they know that you're there, you're going to watch a little bit. If you're renting from Airbnb or whatever, they have no expectation. They get there, and for the like Monsieur Duran was saying, you got some bad people. It's an open season. You know what I mean? So is there a way, or is it legal, to prevent a third party from operating this business in the, yeah.
At a knee-jerk reaction, Fern, I'd say no, it's not legal. I know that some municipalities have tried with very little success to do that. Simply because, as I said, there's Airbnb is just one of a million kinds of things, and there's Kijiji, and there's chat rooms, and there's Facebooks, and by taking away I don't think we're at a place now where we can take the internet out of the equation, because I think it's here to stay, and it's how everybody does everything now. I think it would be a moving target and a very tough. See, I know that some municipalities have made agreements with companies like Airbnb, where they've actually entered into agreements where there's, set rules. If you want to operate in our municipality and you want us, you want to be here, then this is how you're going to behave. I do know that that has taken place, but as for an outright ban, I don't think so.
Okay.
Dan is next, I think. He's still on. We lost him, I think. Dan, are you there? Oh.
Trying.
You're up, Dan.
Sorry about that. I lost connectivity. I guess what I'm sensing is that the only way we could have any control over this is that we'd have to have everybody that has an RM has a rental registered. Is that going to be an onus? Is that going to be too much of an overburden for the municipality? Because if you look at it from the perspective, like Norm was saying, is that in BC, what they've done is they've regulated it. There's only allowed 2 people, you're allowed 2 people. So I guess the only way that we could really implement something like this and enforce it is to have a registration. And are we willing to go that far? That's only my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Ravita. Any other, Mr. Fisher?
I just, is that me? Is that my problem?
Yeah.
How about now?
Okay.
Better.
Okay, so I just want to comment on the, because it mentions the municipal accommodation tax, and we did go through that exercise a couple of years ago, and for our tourist operators, that was a non-starter. And the other thing, there were stipulations about that particular accommodation tax. It could only be used, I believe, for advertising for tourism, and in my mind, we're going after the same pool of people with that money. So I'm for middle of the road. Let's do something about it. I'm against any municipal accommodation tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. A little bit ahead, I think, but continuing on the STRs, I'd just like to comment also. I've had a lot of issues the last summer with complaints, and there's not really anything we can do about it except by bylaw officer, which on a Saturday, Sunday won't show up probably. And I've had complaints mostly from neighbors or people who have houses that have paid a big price for the houses and expect peace and quiet during the summer times. And these people show up and they create havoc for everybody else around the bay. So it is a big issue. And if we're saying that we can't prevent it, I guess we'll have to regulate it. That's the only other options, but it's unfair to people who buy houses on the lake and have cottages and pay the higher taxes. I don't think it's fair to them. And if it was up to me, they wouldn't have any STRs, but I guess that's not going to happen. So I guess we have to progress with the times, and I think we should have some sort of bylaw, separate bylaw or something with good regulations, tight, so that there's no abuse going on. And that's pretty well my comments. So maybe we can go to the public. Sorry, Yvonne?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree with what you're saying. And let's do that. Let's set some rules, and that the owners of the property are responsible, and that they may, that they be well informed that they're responsible to whom they rent it to and what happens on that property. Let's make sure that that's in the rules, because they
Yes.
are the ones that are taking the time to rent it. They don't care who they rent it to. Well, in this case, they're going to care, because if anything happens, if there's any disruptions, that they pay the price for that. So let's make sure that they are well informed and they are responsible for the rental of that property in every way, shape, or form. They are responsible to make sure there's not too many people, and they are responsible for the noise, and are responsible for anything else that happens that is illegal and that is harmful to other people in and around that area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. I agree with what you said. I'm just wondering, Melanie, if would it be stronger to have a bylaw on its own, or to tie it in with other stuff here, like the storage containers?
Mr. Chair, we'd have to do both, because in the zoning bylaw, we can only limit the land use portions. It's limited to these zones, or, it's limited to,
Okay.
properties of this. The land use portions, or as I think it was Madam Mayor who indicated, creating a special zone, so that if you have one of these, you're perhaps a commercial 4 or something like that. I'm just pulling that out of my hat, but you have a special zone classification. If you want to do this, apply to have your property rezoned. But there should be, I think, a standalone license a bylaw which would, like Mr. Norm had said, about how many people and, what kind of, if the tile bed is set for, if the property is designed for, it's a 2-bedroom dwelling, then no more than, say, 5 people, or this kind of thing. And also you'd have to register. So, we would know who has properties in West Nipissing who have these sorts of activities going on. That way, there's not that some people might, but, people will know that if you're in West Nipissing, if you want to rent your property, these are the rules. You got to go to town hall, you got to register, you got to, rezone your property, or whatever, whatever this committee, decides what these terms are going to be, that everybody's playing by the same set of rules.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Joanne?
I think it's really important to make the distinction between the ownership of the actual dwelling. If it's a permanent resident of an individual that decides at different times throughout the year to rent it as Airbnb, versus someone where it's a secondary dwelling. It's not your primary residence, it's your secondary dwelling, which you plan on using for recreation and for generating income and short-term rental. I think it's important that we have that distinction.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Madam Clerk?
I'm just going to ask, I wanted to clarify, Madam Mayor, are you talking about, so say I have a house in town and I have a camp on Tomco, but I use it sometimes at the camp, and sometimes I rent it out. Or I have a house in town and I only bought the camp in Tomco for income purposes. Is that what you were?
Well, sort of.
I'm confused.
Okay, just to make it, okay, if it's your primary residence, in the odd time, you know that you can accommodate short-term rental, okay? And if it's not your primary residence, it's a secondary dwelling with the intent to use it the odd time, but it's to generate also income as short-term rental, there's a distinction. There's quite a distinction. And I'll just give a far-fetched example. Let's say I live out in the country. I know that 1 month out of the year, I go away on holidays, and I'm willing to do short-term rental for that 1 month throughout the year. However, if I own the property in the country where I don't reside there and I bought it to be able to enjoy it occasionally, but with the main purpose of generating an income, operating a business as short-term rental to anyone and to list it on the internet as an Airbnb, I mean, we need to have that type of classification to make the distinction.
Okay, so what you're saying is someone who would do it as a one of, but mostly lives in that house all the time, wouldn't be under the same rules as someone who bought it pretty much for the purposes of renting it.
Correct.
Okay, I got it.
Dan?
I think that by doing what Joanne basically just said, we're splitting hairs and it becomes very complicated. I think if we just put the responsibility, as Councillor Yvon said, the responsibility on the person that owns and stipulates that they're registered and that, like not Councillor Yvon, Norm stated that they do in BC. There's probably a registration. You're allowed so many people. That's it. There's no splitting of hairs. I think that would cause too much of a burden to be able to enforce. So I would be against that. I don't think it doesn't really make sense. It's making it too complicated, and that's my opinion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Joanne.
I just want to highlight right now, we're looking at the different options. And of course, right now we're given all the options to be explored to our planner to come back with potential recommendation. Like I said, I do believe some municipalities have that in their bylaws and they've set a new classification, but we need to be able to make a distinction. Who is operating a business versus not operating a business? Because what we do have in our backyard, we do have a lot of landowners that are on the water and that they have a cabin on their property to accommodate their guests, their family. And I've seen that during special events like the IPM, they opted to rent it for the 10 days to individuals from out of town. So are they really in a commercial operation? Probably not. But for those that are, we need to be able to make that distinction. So I just find that, at the end of the day, let's not focus on the issue of what would be complicated or not. It's what is conducive to the land use and operation of what we do have in our municipality. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Joanne. Any other
Mr.
comments?
Chair, quick speak.
Oops. Yes. Who's
Yes,
speaking, please?
Mr. Chair, it's Bob Jolly again from Clear Lake. I agree wholeheartedly with what the mayor is suggesting, and I think it's important to have that difference between people that are just buying property to make money on it versus people that actually live there. People that live there should certainly have the right to rent out the property if they're not using it at that point. But if you're going to buy a property with the intent of simply making money off it while you're not living there, it should be an entirely different thing. And I would go further than that and say, in relation to the accessory dwellings, I don't think the board has really dwelt with that one yet, but the accessory dwellings, if you do have, for instance, I think it's reasonable to allow a person that wants to move onto their property and build a permanent home and leave their cottage there for their parents or whatever. That's reasonable, but it is not reasonable to allow them to start renting that out. That should not be available for short-term rental. That's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue with this is that if an individual decides to buy a piece of property and does not wish to live here at the present time, but is willing, he's buying the property or she's buying the property for the future to stay there. So how do you accommodate that person? The person is going to eventually live there, but what they've done is they've bought it with the idea that they're going to retire there. So, we're splitting hairs here. And the thing is it gets to the point where we have a hard time basically, enforcing anything that comes about. But I will leave it to the planner to come back with something that will make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I think that's the issue right now is we're just gathering all the stuff and we're not going to really, we'll wait for the planner to have a report on this. And I'm sure we'll hear from public other ideas on this issue. So thank you for your comment. Michael, I guess we'll move on to the public if the committee is over with. Any other questions from the committee? No? So we'll move on to public and Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everyone. Salut tout le monde. I hope that you and your families are well. My name is Michael Roy, and I have been a proud resident of our municipality since 2016 when we purchased our property at 182 Paradis Road in Badge Road Township. I'm a professional engineer serving the mining industry for over 12 years at both local and international levels. I'm speaking up today as a concerned citizen whose human rights, privacy, and solitude have been compromised since the owner of a property adjacent to our family home has been offering their camp for rent on Airbnb. The situation has caused numerous security violations and significant distress to myself, my family, and our cherished neighbors. Today, I'm voicing my support for an outright ban or prohibition on short-term rentals in the municipality of West Nipissing. At a minimum, I support that the following 16 limitations, without exception, be imposed by the municipality through bylaw to regulate property owners choosing to operate as short-term rentals. Number 1, the primary residence of the owner of property operating as a short-term rental shall be within the same district. Number 2, a minimum of 7 consecutive nights for any rental duration. Number 3, a minimum rental rate of $1,200 per day. Number 4, a minimum lot size of 1,500 square meters. Number 5, a minimum distance of 15 meters between main building and those of adjacent properties. Number 6, a minimum distance of 10 meters between parking facilities and the sleeping quarters of any adjacent property. Number 7, a maximum occupancy of 4 people. Number 8, the property must have a source of potable water with certificate renewed annually of proof that it's safe to drink. Number 9, a septic system, if applicable, shall be in full functioning order, confirmed annually by inspection. Number 10, all garbage to be stored in garbage cans without lids. Number 11, no outside sleeping or sleeping accommodations, tents or camper trailers permitted on the premises. Number 12, short-term rental cannot operate with an open building permit on the property. Number 13, any guests to the renters shall depart the premises by 10 p.m. each day. Number 14, open air burning of fire shall only be with materials provided by the owner operator in designated burn area between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 p.m., where wind speeds do not exceed 20 kilometers per hour and it's not raining, snowing, or foggy, and must be attended, controlled, and supervised at all times, and is extinguished before vacating the burn area. Number 15, an annual payment of $250 to each adjacent property owner for purchase and maintenance of surveillance equipment required for security. Finally, number 16, a licensing process instituted, including demerit point system for rental suspension and monetary fines for violation of noise, pollution, and other failures to uphold the bylaws of this municipality. To inform my research, I referenced the existing short-term rental policies of the town of Fort Erie and the cities of St. Catharines and Kingston. Outside of this meeting, I could send the details shared today by email if necessary. The municipality and our community can count on me for my full support within my capacities to move this matter to prompt resolution. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns and for your trusted support in resolving this grave matter of restoring security, well-being, and peace to our lives. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. I guess we would need some sort of email sent to the clerk with these issues on them so that we can rehash them somehow. Right now, it's hard to discuss them when there's so many. But could you send something to the clerk that she could share with the committee?
I will, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Roy, can you just in your email reference the names of those municipalities again, whose policies you researched? I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public at this time?
Hi, it's Catherine Thorne-Rochon again.
Yes.
You have a written submission for me there, but there's just a couple of additional points that I'd like to point out. I too, since we've moved to our property in 2009, our neighbors operate, it's not on Airbnb, but a rental cottage at their home. It's their cottage, and they have a secondary unit that they rent out. That's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit, where sometimes it is just a couple, 2 people. We have had as many as 8 to 10 people because they also have camper trailers on the property. Needless to say, when 10 people move in for a week next door to you, it is extremely disruptive. You know, even if they are the ideal campers, it's still it's overwhelming. Like it's yeah, and the specific issue I think really needs to be addressed is that there are so many of the properties that are on Airbnb or being rented that are on septic systems. And when you start to, I invite all of the committee members to go and look, Frank, sorry, to go and look on Airbnb, and you'll get a feeling for what kind of listings are there. Some are quite reasonable, but there are often, you'll see 3 bedrooms, maximum 12 guests, 2 bedrooms, maximum 9 guests. Now, if you're looking at a cottage with a septic system that was installed 30 years ago, you know, the septic was rated for, you know, 2 people and 800 square feet. And I will tell you that at this point, my husband and I are dealing with a contaminated well, which we believe is the result of the septic system being overwhelmed next door, but we have yet to be able to prove that. So there are also really serious environmental concerns about the properties being used in a way that is so obviously above what the occupancies should be. You know, there are additional concerns with housing supply and affordability and all that kind of stuff that comes from properties being taken off the residential market and put into a commercial setting. But, you know, for somebody who has lived this as a reality for the last 12 to 13 years, you know, it really is unpleasant. And I'm sure that on the committee, you have spoken with other people who have felt the same. I also did some additional research, which I believe I have provided to Mel. And I specifically looked at the Collingwood Blue Mountain area. And, you know, they've done some very interesting things in that they have a detailed map of the municipality, not at all based just on what the zoning is for different areas, that determines where properties are permitted and where additional STAs are not permitted. So, you know, they've looked at probably things like the characteristics of that specific neighborhood, the capacity of the lake, the water systems, etc. And when you look at the map that they've presented in their report, you know, it's very speckled. You know, there's red here, there's green here, there's red here, there's green here, and really done a very, I think, good job of identifying areas that can handle the capacity. The unfortunate thing about West Nipissing is that for much of our lakeshore, we are not on city services. We rely on well and septic, whereas in their case, they have municipal services right up to their waterfront. So there are areas that can take this, but for the most part, West Nipissing, just from an infrastructure standpoint, is ill-equipped to handle the increased occupancy and strain on the system. And that's kind of what I have to say along with my written submission. But I too, I mean, I don't know where the middle a compromise sits. But you know, there are a lot of issues there to be talked about. So thank you.
Thank you, Madame Rachel, and I agree with you. There's a lot of issues to be dealt with. It's not a straightforward issue, and hopefully we can, through consultations, which can get through to a decent bylaw or zoning bylaw that would accommodate most of the people. But I think it's a long way off. So anyways, thank you for your comments, and Dan.
Sure. Somebody explain when we're talking about the zoning part. Are we saying that you were in a specific area, you would be zoned? I guess I must be through you, Mr. Chair. I'm asking the question to Melanie. Would that mean that if there's a zoning area, like for instance in my area where I live, if we establish that it's a non-R&B zoning, then people would not be able to rent out their houses at all?
That is entirely up to the committee. You know, that is up to the committee to determine where, you know, if they want to state that certain zones can't have short-term rentals, or certain areas, as Mrs. Vachon had indicated. You know, perhaps we do have a couple of lakes in West Nipissing which are at capacity. And, you know, I've already got some very specific constraints on them for environmental concerns. You know, maybe that those lakes would be places where they wouldn't be permitted, or there's a lot of information, and it's entirely up to this committee through consultation to determine what they want their bylaw to look like.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Hello, Mr. Howie Longfellow calling, if you're still taking comments from the public.
Yeah, yes, we are.
You, Howie?
Sorry?
It's Howie?
Yeah, it's Howie Longfellow. I'm the president of the Clear Lake Cottages Association. I reside at 117 South Shore Road. I want to say that I've heard some really great stuff from the committee tonight, so I want to commend everyone for their concerns and listening to the public. I also wanted to mention that the document that Melanie shared within the agenda, the STR toolkit, I highly recommend people go through that document. It's quite good, and it educated me as well. I did want to add that I've been a resident here for over 20 years, and we've actually seen substantial changes to the lake environmentally, and an increase in garbage along the shoreline. And I have to be honest that increase has happened in the past 2 years. Everyone knows in our municipality that about the tadpoles at Clear Lake. Everyone's chased after them on the beach and whatnot. Well, I'm here to say that they're no longer in the lake. We have not seen any for a number of years, and I can't say I know what that reason is, but weed growth has increased, and there's never been so many cases of swimmer's itch until this year. The lake was teeming with aquatic life that we no longer see. We did make a submission back in November, and everyone's had a chance to look at that. So we do feel that a freeze on density in the SR zone is necessary. But I did want to mention that sustainability should be a priority when considering this new bylaw for STRs. Like Kathleen mentioned, people are packing guests into these spaces, and that causes a lot of problems with septic systems and the environment around us. So I think that a business licensing tool should be part of this regulation. I mean, when it comes down to it, and I respectfully have to say, Dan, that if somebody's buying a cottage to come and build something years down the road, but they're renting it to offset the cost of the taxes, they are basically starting up a business of accommodating tourists, and I think that they should be zoned and taxed that way. It does create a lot of community disruption and creates anxiety, as Michael Roy had mentioned earlier, within the neighborhood. And I mean, I come back to it that, you know, our slogan for the municipality is Joie de Vivre, and when there's anxiety like that in the neighborhood, it's not good for the joie de vivre. So I think that some real due diligence needs to be taken when considering this short-term accommodations bylaw. It is very difficult to regulate, I understand that, but STRs really increase violations of local regulations. And I do believe that it's a revenue loss to the municipality if things are not licensed and zoned and taxed appropriately. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Longfellow.
Thank you very much.
Good points. Okay. Any other comments from the public? None? Nobody on your radar, Melanie?
I don't think so. I think that
Well,
those that wish to speak have spoken. Perhaps the other persons on the line are just listening.
so I guess the next step would be to get all this info together somehow and have some sort of report for the committee. And then I really like the issue of Mr. Rebels with regulations down in BC. I think that's a good starting point, but anyways, we'll wait for the report.
So I am going to ask for a recommendation as to whether or not the municipality wishes to, so I had broken it out, do we wish to prohibit or permit with regulation? So the resolution reads, the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality enact the following changes to A, define short-term rentals, permit short-term rentals in certain zones and establish a licensing bylaw, or define short-term rentals and prohibit short-term rentals. So I think from what I've heard tonight that this committee is more in line with permitting them, but under strict controls and regulations to ensure that we protect our infrastructure, our water, and the peace and quiet of our residents.
Well,
Yeah.
seems to be a lot of yeses. I would prohibit them, but that's just my opinion. There's a
Well,
lot of yeses, so I'm overruled there.
yeah, but Mr.
Because
Chair, I think
there's
right
no-
now, I think the whole emphasis is that right now it's a free for all and it can no longer be a free for all. And that's what we're looking at.
I know, but we have options.
So I will ask for a bit of indulgence in getting this together. There's a lot of work. I'm going to ask that Mr. Roy send me the information that he had indicated tonight. I've got the submissions from Mrs. Thorne and Mr. Jolly and Mr. Longfellow. I already have those. I also have a bunch of samples, and I'm going to see if I can cobble something together with all of the comments that I received from the committee members tonight and bring it back for a digestion at maybe not the next meeting, but because I think the next meeting we have some fairly busy planning applications to look at that we won't probably have a lot of time for this. But if you give me the indulgence of a couple of months, I'll try and bring something back in the not too distant future for discussion.
Sounds good, I guess. We'll
Just
move on.
a comment, Mr. Chair. I certainly want to put a lot of emphasis on the owners that are renting these properties. That are there are the owners, and they are the sole responsibility of whatever activity happens within this cottage, and that any rules that are broken, they are responsible. I want that written in black and white, so that they made aware that they make sure that who they rent to and how many and what happens there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think you need to have the proper consequences, otherwise it's not going to work.
That's right.
I do know that, and this is just an aside, when I went to Europe a couple of years ago with my daughter, we stayed in a variety of these kinds of things. And there's really, most of them have really good websites where, I think that public can go on too and make, comments about particular properties. So, there's always those tools. If a landowner or a property owner has negative reviews, I know that when I was looking for places, I read the reviews exhaustively and, got really good results as a result. So, I think if people are, the tool goes both ways. You can find a place and you can also kill a place, I think, if you, you know, by, you know, they're always crappy. Tell Airbnb that, and, you know, they'll maybe sanction that property owner, but anyways, that was just
Yeah, but
personal
even if
information.
you have good reviews, you're still, you need to be accommodated by the neighbors, and doesn't, you
Well,
might
that's
be
what
a
I'm
good,
saying. If the neighbors
a good
give them
tenant.
bad reviews, then, you know, because they rent to people who are disruptive, I think that could hurt them too, so.
It's the cottage owners and the house owners that need to suffer in the meantime. You know?
Anyways,
Dan had a comment, I think.
I think you just answered it, because people, we're putting emphasis on cottage owners, and we're saying cottages and stuff. We have R&Bs not just at cottages, we have them in urban areas. We have them in neighborhoods. So I think the thing is, let's not lose that focus either, because there are some that exist right within urban areas. I haven't heard any complaints about them, but
I think
they exist.
I think it's less disruptive in urban areas than it is cottage areas, I think. I'm not sure. Anyways,
Excuse me,
thank you for your
Chair.
comment. Yes, Dora?
Yes, I live on the same lake as Mr. Roy, and we have sent to the response to the planner. We have sent comments to Airbnb about the disruption and about the renters misbehaving. And it takes a lot of work, and they might take the site down for a day or two, and then the site comes back up. And then any negative reviews that go on there from neighbors, they disappear very quickly. So as far as putting the onus on us, we've even directly talked to them. The owners have even said to us, oh, well, if something happens, call me. Well, they're 4 hours away. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, when we're calling the police officers to come and tell them to be quiet so we can sleep, that's not affecting the people who own it. It's affecting us. Or the swearing that's going across the yard when you have 3 kids under the age of 4 outside playing. These are the issues that directly relates to how we feel in our homes. You know, and so I would like the committee to look at, you know, this is the only rental on our lake. We only have 6 people who live here full time. It went right in between 2 family homes. It's a nice quiet lake, and then they talked about, oh, and there's crown land everywhere, come and play. And it's not crown land, it's private land, and they've been on private land over and over and over again, to the point where it's affecting the people who live here who had privileges. They've all been removed because of these behaviors. So I would like you to think about, when you talk about where and whether turning it commercial or not, think about also, is it a lake that has already a lot of commercial rental camps and stuff on it? Or is it a lake where 90% of the residents are just single residents where people live? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dora.
can I just get your name, ma'am, just for the record, for the minutes, please?
It's Dora Hoffman.
Mhm.
And I'm at 188 Parody Road.
Thank you very much.
All right, so it's pretty well it with it. We're almost
Lots of
done.
notes.
Yeah, I know. A lot of work for you, Melanie.
Oh, thanks. Because we're not, it's quiet in here. We're good. Just,
Better you do than me.
can I just, yeah, that's good. I think I got my marching orders. And do we have anything else we want to talk about? No?
We want to talk about the accommodation tax quickly, or?
That is more a conversation. I can maybe ask Mr. Fisher. I remember it was brought up at it came up at council, I think, when the legislation was brought forward. And I think that there was at the time, and I think my mind serves me right, it was just before COVID. And I think we were going to get a presentation from our local Chamber of Commerce
Yeah.
on how that worked. And I think as a result of COVID and meetings and everything changing, that we never did get there. So maybe I'll ask our treasurer, or maybe
It actually,
you can.
it actually did take place.
Did we? Sorry, go ahead then, Chris.
Yeah, there was a presentation by the chamber, and there was a number of the resort owners were adamantly opposed to it, and also the way that the municipality would be allowed to spend that money was very limited, and it died. It died right there. And I mentioned it because you put it into the.
Do you know if any municipalities did institute it? I don't think North Bay did, but I think Sudbury may have.
I believe Sudbury have, but the accommodation tax though is a different subject matter, which basically is at the municipal level. I don't think here we were talking about accommodation tax. We were talking about the designation of the land and the use and the purpose of the land.
Right on.
I think I just mentioned it in my memo simply because some municipalities
Was
have
in the
applied
memo.
that to those types of properties as well as hotels and campgrounds and things like that.
Now that Chris mentioned it, I think it was rejected at the time on council. So, all right.
Let's get that for now. So we're ready to adjourn this
Right on.
tonight and move on to the next meeting.
Norm and Dan.
Is moved by Norman Roberge and seconded by Dan Rovita. We have resolved that the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee meeting of February the 14th, 2022 be adjourned to March 14th, 2022.
All in favor? Carried.
Oh, we'll go on mute and we'll see those of you who are coming to the next meeting in 15 minutes.
All right, good night.
Good evening.
Thank you. Oh, there's my friend Roger. Oh, yes, Mr. Roger.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Norm.
You look a lot healthier than we do, Roger.
Thank you. Nice to be with you guys.
I'm
Nice
sure
to-
it's warmer where you are than where we are.
It is. I've been following your temperature, and I don't want to be there.
No, it was minus 35 when I was driving to work this morning.
I know.
Ooh.
Yeah, we get notice from everybody.
Well, because they all, and then
Yeah,
they
right.
probably all got a list. They want to come stay with you.
Yeah. But so far nobody came, so it's been quiet.
When are you coming home?
First week of April,
Don't blame you.
in time for the April meeting.
Okay.
You have will we have a March meeting? Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
believe
can't-
so.
I can't believe the how many applications you're still getting.
It's,
Unreal.
I think it's going to be very much the same as last year. I don't see
Yeah.
anything, unless we kill Paul and Dawn.
Yeah.
He doesn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hey,
No,
Actually, it sounds like a-
and I know that Mr. Miller's just, they're all swamped.
Oh, unreal.
there's only Fern missing, I guess.
Where is he?
Vern's not in tonight.
Well, he's there. Oh,
Right
now you
there.
found the button. You didn't know which button to press. Bonsoir, Vern.
Okay, we're just about 1 minute.
Okay, let's go. I told you we would be over by 8 because it's Saint Valentine and she has to go home. At the last
All right,
meeting,
I
Mr.
got my present already. I didn't have to cook supper.
Mr. Senecal warned me at the last meeting that tonight I was not going to be very popular with the female staff for
Yeah.
having a meeting tonight. So please, we'll go as fast as possible and stay legal.
Yeah.
So if it's all right, I'll call the meeting to order.
Sure.
Okay, any declaration of pecuniary interest? Hearing none, I will carry on. Could I have a motion for the approval of the agenda, please?
Roger,
Moved by
yes.
Dennis, seconded by Chris.
It is moved by Denise Senecal and seconded by Chris Fisher. Be it resolved that the agenda for the West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment meeting of February the 14th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Everybody in favor? Carried. Okay, before we start with the actual deliberation, for the people in the public attending the meeting or wanting to participate, this being what they call a quasi-judicial meeting, is that we do our best to make sure that everybody understand the process. Therefore, if somebody is more like unilingual on the French side, please don't hesitate. Let us know. We'll translate it to make sure that you understand what is happening with your property or neighboring property. Secondly, when the municipal clerk will present the application, if the applicant has a consultant, he will explain the subject matter to the committee member. Otherwise, the municipal planner does. Then secondly, the members discuss it among themselves, ask clarification from the presenter. Once that is done, then it's open to the floor, to the public. Please state your name and address because the municipal planner is recording this. So that is to protect your right of appeal if you're not satisfied with the decision being taken tonight. Okay, so I think that's clear. Nobody need translation. So we'll carry on with the consent file number.
Missed a minute.
Pardon me?
We missed the minutes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry. Could I have a mover and seconder for the minutes of the December? Oh, that would be. We had a meeting in January, eh?
No, there's a mistake on the agenda. They are the January minutes. She just made a mistake on the face page of the
Okay.
agenda.
So we're adopting the January minute.
We're adopting the January 10th minutes.
So we have who move, Mr. Senecal and Chris. Everybody in favor? Carried. Now to C04-22, 268-2213 Ontario Limited.
I need a mover and a seconder, please. Chris, Roger. It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Roger Gagnon that a consent application made by 268-2213 Ontario Limited for a lot addition on vacant land located at Highway 17 and Priceval Street West in Verner, being part of lots 42, 43, and 45, and all of lot 44, and part of Beaudry Street, all on plan 36M496 in the township of Caldwell. Through you, Mr. Chair, this application, you will recall, for those who are on the Planning Advisory Committee, you'll recall that this block 9 that's being added was originally part of the subdivision application submitted by Monsieur Yves Briette, or latter part of last year, or maybe the early part of this year. I'm starting to get confused. Anyways, what is being proposed? I think that there's, in order to move forward with some other business plans that he'd like to move forward with the lot addition at this time, before the subdivision has been fully engineered and whatnot. So it's my understanding that he's going to be removing this block 9 from the subdivision draft plan and just moving it onto this, what is the RL Equipment property at the back. So the one thing that I will point out is, and I think it was brought up at the Planning Advisory Committee, there is a water line that was put in many, many, many years ago that runs from Cartier Street, and it runs, I believe, under the corner of the building and through the property, the block 9, and then across the retained lands, and it leads to the motel. What I would like as a recommendation on this severance is that we take an easement for the water line where it lies, and in the event that when the subdivision is laid down and the water line is relocated or realigned, then obviously we would take that easement off and release and abandon it and register it where it lies at the time. But other than that, that's the only comments I would have. I don't know, Mr. Miller, if you've got anything you want to add.
No, I think you've covered everything. I mean, the only concern would be the easement for the water line where it goes under the building. It's probably not appropriate to deal with that portion, the portion outside the building.
Yeah, we would register just the portion that's on the ground. Yeah, it would be troublesome. But we'll, we've got some time, and I think we'll probably have to get a locate on exactly where that line is laying.
Yeah, and this issue was fully discussed and dealt with a year and a half ago on the original application by the landowner for the proposed, apartment buildings and all that. So I think it's just to confirm, like, part 1 of his project. So I don't think, is there any question or discussion, anything from the public? Hearing none, I'll call to a vote. Everybody in favor as presented? Carried. Next would be CO5-22, Sean McCree, Albert Villot, and Lucie Chartrand. Could I have a proposer and a seconder for this? Mr. Fisher and Mr. Gagnon.
Moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Roger Gagnon that a consent application made by Sean McCrae, Albert Villot, and Lucie Chartrand Villot for the creation of a new lot at 116A Nature's Trail Road in Noelville, being part of Lot 8, Concession 1 in the Township of Faulkner. 3, Mr. Chair, this is part 2 of the application, which was heard at the previous meeting by the Planning Advisory Committee The proposal here, for those who were not at that meeting, is to separate existing dwellings all on one lot on Nature's Trail Road in North Minettville, or Noelville, or I'm not sure where it is, but anyways, these are an existing situation with 2 cottages on one lot, each of which has their own septic system, and each of which has their own, buildings, and it appears their own access from the unmaintained Nature's Trail Road. It was brought up at the previous meeting that there is the driveway on the most easterly lot is encroaching. And although I didn't address it in this, if this committee wants to address that driveway at this meeting, then I'm sure that Mr. Miller will be happy to accommodate. I'm done.
Any question? Anybody, any question, or if we had a read?
No, I think Mel just I'm just having questions about the driveway that's beyond the property line, the severed property line. Will that be?
I think. Well, I'll be honest, I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy counting the buildings and checking the setbacks. But I don't know whether, Mr. Miller, whether you want to condition imposed to obtain a right of way, or whether you want to consult with your client and see whether or not they want to move it, or whether they have some kind of long-term relationship. It's hard for the committee to within the known encroachment to
Yeah,
the neighbors were consulted, and the neighbors were circulated, and we didn't receive any comments.
They didn't comment, and as I said in the previous meeting, if it's necessary to move it, it could be moved onto their own property. They probably have to move one of the sheds to bring the driveway down to the cottage, but there's certainly room to accommodate it and not to impose on the septic system. I don't know what their arrangement is with the adjoining owner. I do know that both the adjoining owner also uses that driveway and accesses their cottage off that driveway. So they probably mutually maintain it. I also know that there is another application coming from another consultant on that adjoining property.
I think that's on the property to the west, though.
Yeah, this is a property to the west that has the encroachment.
Yeah, the driveway is on the west side of what we're dealing with tonight.
Yeah, it's on the west side, Melanie, and that's the one I believe Mr. Dorland's office has.
He's at 128 Nature's Trail, so that property is.
Oh, the property, his application's on the east side?
It's on the other side, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with a condition put on it that the owners deal with the driveway access, by some means of agreement or by relocating it. I can't.
Yeah, Mr. Miller, like as chair, I would be more comfortable if either the applicant was, excuse me, submit a copy of a mutual agreement, or it doesn't have to be a formal right of way, as long as I wouldn't be comfortable supporting something that might landlock that property or cause problems. So if the driveway stays there and both owners some sort of understanding, I have no problem with that. Is that fair with the rest of the committee? That he doesn't have to spend a fortune on surveying if he wants to, so better, but
something to the effect that the owner provides satisfactory evidence that the driveway arrangement is satisfactory to both parties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and he just has to present it to you, and we'll be I would be satisfied with that. Yes, Mr. Fisher.
So I used to have a mutual driveway, but aren't they usually put on title? And then the reason being they're on title so that if somebody sells the property, then that access, I mean, it's all good and fine that two neighbors have an informal agreement right now, but what happens when?
Okay,
one of the
Mr. Fisher,
neighbors sells that property?
I would recommend what you're suggesting if it was a new situation. We're going back to the 1950s when this was originally created, and we're trying to bring that property as much as up to date with today's law, and so they both have one parcel. So I think we have to kind of give a bit of leeway there and try to accommodate if we can without, reduce the issue of problem. It's been there for 70 years with no problem. I don't want to create one tonight. That okay, Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, with the consultant, with Mr. Miller?
That's very reasonable, Mr. Chair.
Everybody else comfortable? Okay, anybody from the public having any concern or comments? Hearing none, I'll call it to a vote. Everybody in favor as circulated with the proposed amendment? Carried.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Rick.
Same to you. Okay, the next issue would be, let's
We're
see,
going next door.
next door to
We're
the
going
east.
next door to 128 Nature's Trail Road.
Okay, CO 7-12.
And I'll read the resolution. This just for, this was a resubmission of an application last year that had lapsed. This property is located exactly to the east of the property we just discussed. And you'll see that Nature's Trail Road, there is a driveway off of Nature's Trail Road that goes across the pin number 0140 leading to pin number 0141. And that was the purpose of this application, was for a registered right of way so that they could have access from, as you'll see, the old driveway from that was, you had to go around and kind of come in from the east. These are related people. These is a parents and child situation. So they're making a new driveway across the.
And from the layout of the existing road, I'm assuming that there's a kind of a formation in a rock or something. And that's why it's.
Yeah, this is not a municipal road. We don't maintain.
No, it's a driveway, but I think that's the most easiest access to the property would be to create this right of way to their
And
property.
it was previously approved by this committee.
Yeah. Okay, I see no problem there either. Any comments or question from the members? Any question from the public? Hearing none, I will call it to a vote. Everyone in favor as presented, carried. And then we'll go on to C8.
Next application is CO 822. I need a mover and a seconder. And actually, the last one, I didn't have a mover and a seconder. So could we please, thank you. We approved the last one before and I didn't read the resolution.
Okay, we'll give one to Dennis and Roger.
Okay, now we're gonna have one for this one.
And now it's Fern and Mr. Fisher.
It is moved by Fern Calladay and seconded by Chris Fisher that a consent application made by Greg and Lori McDonald for the creation of a new lot at 140 Poirier Road in Loving, being the west part of Lot 11, Concession C in the Township of Caldwell. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is also a resubmission that was from an application that we heard last year. This property is located on Poirier Road, and you'll see it's just at the curve in Poirier Road. And the application is for a new lot that meets all of the frontage and lot area requirements for the rural zone.
So it's the same basically that we've dealt with before and approved.
That is correct. Normal conditions, this property is on the Rainville drain, so there is an apportionment of the drainage to be worked out. Transfer the road if it hasn't already been transferred to the municipality. Typical stuff.
Okay, so any question or comments from the members? Hearing none, and any from the
Monsieur
floor?
Roberge?
Oui.
Wait, I got a question for Mel. Mel, in the condition, it states 30 meters from the center line. Is that, that seems excessive, no?
That's the recommendation of our Public Works Director.
It didn't used to be that much?
No, he's recently, in order to ensure that we have adequate space for, in the event of road widening or, ditching that needs to be increased, while we may not use it all, it's nice to have it in the event that the road needs work and we have a space to work in.
Yeah, I think Mr. Goodrich has some explanation for you, Mr. Pellerin.
Okay.
Yes, Paul.
No, I agree with Fern entirely.
No.
30 meters from center line means it would be a 60-meter wide road. That's 200 feet wide.
Hang on a second. I might have written it wrong. It might be 30 feet from center line.
Okay. Or let's go 10 meters.
Let me investigate my file.
Yeah, 10 meters would
because
be.
now that you say it, I'm like, that's a hell of a lot of space.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Just let me look at that. Just let me quickly look at the email from Sean, because I might have written it down incorrectly.
Okay.
So I have a basic question that maybe Paul can. Isn't it usually 66 feet? Isn't that?
That's 18 meters. Yeah, he said 10 meters.
Yeah, let's go 66, which is 20.117.
Yeah, so 10 meters, his recommendation was 10 meters from center line. Which you're okay with?
Yeah.
I fixed it on the resolution. My apologies. And any other ones that I wrote it on, let's assume it says 10.
Okay.
Nice catch, Fern. You'll be playing for the Jays this year.
Okay, any other question or comment from the audience? Hearing none, I'll call it to a vote. Everyone in favor as read. Okay, thank you. Carried. No, the next one.
Next application. This is C09, okay, 22. Mover and seconder.
Moved by Roger and second by Chris.
It is moved by Roger Gagnon and seconded by Chris Fisher that a consent application made by Northland Farms and Contracting for a lot addition on Rainville Road in Laving, being the east half of Lot 11, concession B in the township of Caldwell.
Can I ask you something, Madame Melanie?
Oui.
Was Mr. Goodrich provided with the one we got in our package where we have the diagonal blue lines there?
You
did? Yeah. That is my doing, Paul. I won't square lots.
I could sense your evil presence all over.
So this application,
blame me.
this application is, you'll see that on the sketch there, the part that's one that says part 3, that's the existing dwelling. And what is being proposed here, I understand that there are buyers who'd like to have a little bit more land. So the lot addition portion, which is the space between the previous 2 severances on the east boundary, to add to this property. And you'll see that my recommendation is that the property be squared off so that it's nice and straight and looks nice.
The only comment I would have, as we usually do with these ones, is we're trying to preserve as much of the agricultural land for farm use. And that's why and we're going to have the same comment with each of the next probably 3 or 4.
And I have the same issues. I understand. I look at the satellite map. I can see that you're following every tree and every rock around the property.
Well, and then there's only so much arable land out in that part of the world. and we're trying to preserve as much of it as we possibly can.
But there's
Well,
nothing that would
you know,
preclude your client from renting it back?
Well, it's my client owns it now. Why
Yeah, but-
would he transfer it to someone else and hope that the guy is going to rent it back to him?
Yeah.
Right now, he's got the right to farm it. He doesn't have the right to farm it if he sells it to somebody else.
I fully
So-
understand you, Paul. The only thing is from like I live in the rural sector, and usually when people buy a rural lot, they like to have a little garden or something. For some reason or other, I haven't found vegetable that grow too good on rock. They prefer arable land. So to give a little wee bit of land where they can, you know, maybe enjoy the property a little bit more, I think it's just, and when you go all over the place with the line, it always end up with, you know, enforcement law and people argue, and I don't mind, no, now and then, but the weight was going there, that was too much running around. That's my point of view. The committee can decide otherwise.
Well, just on that, on this particular one, we did try to keep the lines, you know, on this one more so than a couple of the later ones. But on this one, where we're recommending basically a square be added in the southwest corner of it, we already have nice square lines around. The only line that isn't kind of square now is the existing one. And what we're adding on to it will make it square. And there is field at the front for them to be able to use a little bit of the field area up in that location, should they wish a garden. But I know my client is a farmer in this area, and he is trying to maintain as much of the farmland as he possibly can, while still divesting and getting rid of the lands that aren't really suitable for farmland.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'll let the committee decide. I've put my. Yes, Mr. Fisher.
So just looking at, it is very funny shape, but if I look at the other lots just down from it, it looks like those have already been shaped to the available land to maximize the farmland. Am I right in that assumption? That's already happened on those lots?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they have, however, the lots have become increasingly irregular, from somewhat irregular to increasingly irregular, and I think under the Planning Act, we are to have regard to the shape of the lots when we're creating them.
And so, and what you're saying is that this, because yeah, that is a strange shape, and what you're saying is that is a real outlier. That's the, and then I guess Norm, this hadn't had to go to the ag committee at all?
No, it's
No,
not
because-
agriculture land.
Oh, it's not
It's
agriculture.
rural.
It's farmed, but
rural
it's
land.
zoned rural.
It's farm zone. It's okay. It's not zone. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And I guess it's the time to mention that also the part 3 is being deleted also, eh?
That's the next, that's on then C11.
Okay. We Fern.
Yeah, just I'm a little confused with all the sketches there, but from the discussion, I'm assuming that the line is going all around the bush and keeping as much as the field for Mr. Okay, so Paul, to me, it makes sense. The owner that buys it, they buys the rock, so he knows exactly the line goes around the bush. There's no confusion.
Yeah, but Mr. Fern, I see some places in there. It's impossible to go there with the size of agricultural machinery that exists today. If you're going in there and you're going to cultivate with a team of horses and walk behind the plow, I guess you could go in every corner there is there. But some of those corners, no decent tractor can operate in there.
Yeah.
That's from my experience, and I was, I'm fairly well involved in the agricultural side of things. So that's my point. Anyway, I won't argue the situation all night there. I'm just giving you my opinion. And it's up to Paul now to make me look bad there and sell his salad.
Well, I wasn't going to, but since you opened the door, the square that's being recommended to add on to this is about 400 feet by 400 feet. So even my great big Percheron horse, I can turn around in that area, and I'm sure I could get a tractor in and around there too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I take your point. It's very valid, and actually I'm going to make your argument about 2 or 3 applications down the line here. But on this one, I think we have tons of room, and you can see that it is all good field directly south of, like in that little squared area.
Can we negotiate a middle ground? Try and streamline your lines a little bit, because I will have nightmare tonight. I won't sleep tonight with all this.
Okay. Well, we'll do what we can with it. But like I say, our client is a farmer. We're trying to preserve as much as we can for him. And he also owns the land next door, which widens it out a little bit as well.
Because
can we see which one we're talking about?
The top map there.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my piece of paper in front of me. I had to run home.
Oh.
That ring any bells, Don?
Okay, yeah, because of where you've put your hash marks, there are a few buildings there that Dan wants to keep.
Oh, there's buildings.
Yes.
Okay, because
take a look at the Google map, you can see them.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was just more rock outcropping. The ones on either side of the, looks like a little farm road coming down.
Yeah. They're woodshed storages.
Okay, now okay, you're okay on that one. Then I fully understand your position. Then you're going a straight line around the building. Okay.
Yeah.
See, when we have a good explanation, I'm agreeable.
See, that's why we bring him along. He's not just another pretty face. Yeah, there they are, just right there where the hand is.
Okay.
So I guess the question that I would have is why on this sketch it is a rectangle and on the actual other sketch it is a square? I'd like to know why that is. Just bad drafting?
I never take it to bad drafting.
No, but the way it's represented on the sketch that came from the severance, the jog here seems to be substantially deeper.
Can you put it on and I'll just look, because maybe no, you got to remember here that I think the buildings, I don't have the cursor. If you go with your little hand to the blue spot, see where where the number is? Up, yeah, just come across a little to the north, going up to the left. That's about where the buildings are.
Okay. No, I'm just asking because the shape here on your
seems longer, and it may be because
it's just shape, it doesn't seem to match.
And it may be because we had to play around. Maybe, like, I'm sorry, you got me to do this at the last minute, remember?
I know, but I needed to see from my own eyes.
Well, and that line right now, that may be close, and it may move over to left or right, depending on what the ties are to the building.
Is there a way to as member Norm, the chair, had indicated, to maybe minimize this abrupt You know, can it do one of these?
No, because you're gonna go through the buildings.
Okay,
We're coming around the bottom there because like, if you go back to your other one and zoom in,
I don't know if I can do this.
can you see at the back of that house where that line is? That's
Yeah.
the original. You guys already approved that severance.
This is already approved.
Yeah, so it is at the back of the property of what's been, and that's why that line's coming across that way. It's right there. So you see where
Okay.
those buildings are? That line is, those buildings at the corner. He was just trying to keep that there.
This here.
Yeah. So we try to
Okay.
keep straight lines instead of doing crooked.
okay, good. Now you're addressing my concerns there. It's just the overlay is not
Perfect.
perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
it's out of,
So we're leaving this one as originally presented?
yeah, the one on the right-hand side there, yeah.
Yeah. So CO9 as it was presented, not as it was recommended.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with it,
So everybody in favor?
Chair. Yeah.
Okay, so that portion is approved. And we have to go to the next one to,
Yes, let's deal with C1122 since we're already here.
yeah. Is that the bottom part of the map?
Yes, so I'm gonna go back to the screen share here. Well, so the next application is on the next door property. There's two things that I wanted to bring to your attention. This line here was moved over here specifically to maintain the amount of frontage that is required, creating this really strange shape. Yes, they kept the 200 feet of frontage right here, but then they have this really odd shape in here. My recommendation is that this whole line be straightened out as shown on the composite sketch that I had provided. Let me go up to that one. When I get up there.
Yeah, like there's two that can be done. Either he moves it to the right as shown here, or he moves it to the left and go over the rock with his line.
Well, my recommendation was that it be straightened out the way it is shown here in the blue and that a minor variance be obtained for the reduced lot frontage right here. And that, because that does create a better shape.
No, but okay, what I'm saying, so we don't reduce the 200 feet frontage instead of minor, just move the line where it starts go down, the original line he draw, then he goes east, keeps going straight down, and then just 45-degree down to the south. So you don't waste, you might get a few little rocks, but you won't lose any farmland.
I'm not 100% sure what you mean, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The hatch that has been colored there.
Here?
Yeah, instead at the top portion, instead of having it on the east side of the map there, like you brought it there, keep the original line where it was.
Okay.
And go straight down over the rock, not around the rock, go over it.
Go over the rock.
Yeah.
But once again, I think there's buildings in
Oh,
there.
not again there.
Oh, yeah. We snuck out and built them last night.
Let's go see.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, there's a barn.
Yeah,
Oh my
so
God.
we were trying to maintain the setbacks so that we wouldn't require minor variances around the barn area either.
I
Now,
prefer to
once-
see this line straightened
But,
out right here.
okay, but once you've passed the building there, couldn't you have a straight line or
Yes, like I agree with you there, Norm, for sure. We could take that jog out, just past where Melanie went and just bring it still at an angle, more or less following the rock, but just one straight line.
straight line,
Get
like
rid of this.
it'd be about roughly a 45-degree angle or whatever.
Can we can we make this one straight as well?
Which one?
This one.
Then we're back into a minor variance and we're
No, leave it here.
Wants to go from the top over.
Leave it here, but bring it straight to here. Don't jog it in right here on this corner.
Yeah, the reason why that is those fields are tiled, and that's why we followed the rock.
Yeah, okay, I fully understand that. So what I'm suggesting, at the road thing, you can leave it there. Below the buildings, cut across over the rock and down to square it off.
So eliminate this jog
Yeah.
and eliminate this jog.
Okay.
And while we're here, we're gonna, I'm recommending we eliminate this lot addition in its entirety.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's just bad planning.
It serves no purpose.
It serves no purpose.
But it serves no purpose to the owner of the land to the west. And then that's the whole point of this. It does flatten out up on top of the rock, and it still can be used as a, for rural purposes, if the guy wants to use it to, get a little bit of firewood or whatever. But he's got.
Oh, no, that one, Paul, you won't convince me to change my mind on that one. I've been on the other ones there. I support your buildings and all that, not this one. Severed tree, I cannot support.
So this.
Did you notice the little shed at the bottom of the tree there? No, there's no buildings on that
Okay,
side.
but what happens if it's squared up a little bit more?
I still don't think it's good planning to create lots in behind other residential lots. It creates problems.
Well, he's gone to the owner of those lots and asked him if he wanted to buy it. He said no. So this is what he's thinking to get rid of land that he's not using.
I know, but we have to be, and I'm not being disrespectful. We have to be reasonable in how we create lot fabric, and I truly feel that this is not an appropriate. I just don't think it's an appropriate shape.
It doesn't, it has no, I cannot see any reason to doing that. This one, there's no, I can recommend or support that one there. The severed tree is.
Monsieur Berge?
Oui.
The severed tree is proposed to be an addition to severed 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. No, me either. I would not support this.
That's what the proposal. So severed 2 would be just here, and it fills in all the other stuff. It's just really strange.
Yeah, no, I would not support this.
Same here, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't support it either, because severed 2 would be big enough on its own to be within the guideline.
Yeah, it's more than big enough.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so I think all the members have come to the same consensus, Paul, okay? So do your best on the other ones, and number 3 is out.
Okay.
So we're gonna tidy up the lines on severed 1 a little bit and remove severed 3.
Right on.
Okay.
The only argument I can make in favor of that is that it does provide additional tax revenues to the municipality.
Not really. Backlots like that, rock doesn't bring in much money to the municipality, just problems.
Well, if it's a rural residential lot, it's certainly taxed a lot higher than farmland.
But it's still, you're not gonna get any additional revenue from a few extra acres of bush.
We won't do.
Sorry, I won't go there. It's none of my business.
You're too late, Paul.
So I didn't have a mover and a seconder for CU 11, so I need a mover and a seconder to actually pass this resolution, Chris.
Dennis and Mr. Fisher.
Okay, it is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Denise Senecal that a consent application made by Northland Farms and Contracting for the creation of 2 new lots in the lot addition at 122 Rainville Road in West Nipissing shall be granted with respect to severed 1, subject to changes to east boundary, and severed 2, severed 3 be refused.
Right on. Everybody in favor? Carried.
We go
guess
back
we're
to
on
number 10.
Are we going to Lafreniere Road
We're
now?
going to Lafreniere Road. So it is, I need a mover and a seconder.
Okay, Chris and Dennis.
It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Denise Senecal that a consent application made by Northland Farms and Contracting Limited for the creation of 1 new lot on Lafreniere Road, being part of the south half of the east half of Lot 5 in Concession 2 in the township of McPherson. Through Mr. Chair, this is an application is, you'll see we had previously C1121 down there at the bottom corner. Was adopted last year at this time. This application is in the northeast corner, lot area of 3.22 hectares. Plenty big. No issues.
Nice straight lines.
Yeah, okay, no problem with me there.
You've got that 30-meter mistake in that one.
I know there's in all of them. I was consistently wrong. The copy paste. I've changed them as I'm going along.
So any question or comments from the members? Hearing none, I'll call to a vote. Everybody in favor as presented, carried. And now we go on to, Mr.
The all Dan Schwartz and Truber.
Pardon me?
Tonight. This next application, before I read the resolution, you'll recall at the previous application, we had an application last month to remove the dwelling from the rest of the farmland. This was vetted by the Ag Committee. Comments from the Ministry of Transportation received prior to the meeting indicated that the MTO wouldn't support a separate entrance and was requesting a shared access off of Highway 17. So this application is just to satisfy that condition for the right-of-way. I know that we had talked about if there was an ability to negotiate, but I guess that didn't work.
No, actually, just a point of clarification on that. Just the way the MTO had originally written and responded, it appeared that they were taking away the farm entrance on the retained land. And I've since talked to the corridor control officer, and she assures us that the farm entrance will be allowed to remain. And this new easement, shared easement entrance would be for any other use on the farmlands. So it's actually an extra for that Dan will have a little bit extra access to the property. They're not removing his farm entrance. But that's what we thought they were trying to get at from the way they had written it.
So they turn nice. What do you do? Give them some.
It's Valentine's Day. What can I say?
Well, it must be that because they're being super nice all of a sudden.
I send Dawn over.
Oh, he's better of a salesman than you are, eh?
Absolutely.
So I will get so this was just housekeeping follow-up from the previous meeting for a right-of-way. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please, for this resolution?
Yeah, okay, so.
Chris, Roger? So it is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Roger Gagnon that a consent application made by Dan Schwartz and Truber and Leslie Bernard for the creation of a right-of-way at 10725 Highway 17 in Verner, being part of Lot 6, Concession 4 in the Township of Caldwell, shall be granted.
Everybody in favor? Carry. And now, Mr. Taylor, Megan Wilmer. It's your turn, Mr. Hummel. You're coming up.
Mover and a seconder, please. Chris?
And Roger.
Roger? It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Roger Gagnon that a consent application made by Taylor and Megan Hummel for the creation of one new lot and a right-of-way for property located at 13351 Highway 64 in Field, being part of Lot 9, Concession 4, Part 1, 36R3839 in the Township of Field. Through Mr. Chair, this property is located on Highway 64 on the way to Field. What is being proposed is a new lot. However, they're planning to keep the existing driveway and share it by way of a registered easement. Both lots are well in excess of the amount required, and I do believe we received correspondence from the MTO, which I passed on to Dawn, Paul, and your comments with regard to that.
No, we're fine with that. That's pretty standard for a shared entrance.
Okay,
The only thing is they want the draft plan before.
that's correct.
Yeah, and it does slow it down, but we'll try to get it off to them as quickly as we can.
Okay. No concerns raised by any neighbors or any members of the public.
So, Mr. Arnold, do you have any question? You understand the process?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess hearing no further comments or question, I'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor as presented, carried.
Last application, I'll take them over in a second. Roger. Chris. It is moved by Roger Gagnon, seconded by Chris Fisher, that a minor variance application made by Gabrielle Saint Denis for property located at 557 La Plage Road in Verner, being part of Lot 3, Concession C, being parts 5 to 7 on Plan 36R14173 in the Township of Caldwell. Through you, Mr. Chair, you'll recall this property was one that was, I think, the subject of a severance, and I'm going to say probably 2018 or 19. What is being proposed? Mr. Saint Denis would like to construct a boathouse, and last year constructed a break wall. What do you call that?
Yeah, I see that. I see that on the map there.
Yes. And in order to accommodate our bylaw provides for a 5-meter setback from the side lot line on a straight line projection. Mr. Saint Denis is requesting a reduction in that setback from 5 meters to 3 meters on that south boundary in order to build his boathouse.
Yeah, but the side boundary, like, I have a hard time there for the printing is very small here to understand this map. Maybe Paul or,
Sure.
Don could explain that to me.
Certainly, the concrete retaining wall that's on the front of the property makes a 90-degree bend. No, that's not the property, but anyway, what Monsieur Saint Denis wishes to do is to be able to build the wall of the boathouse, the southerly wall of the boathouse on top of the retaining wall. And that would then put them within 3 meters of the side lot line instead of 5 meters. Now, the reason for the 5 meters is that so if both people had boathouses with docks on that side, that they could both access and navigate safely. With this being the 90-degree bend and the boathouse on Monsieur Saint Denis' side being inset, if there's a dock on the side of the boathouse, that will be located on the north side, and most likely there would be the door opening for access to the boathouse on the west side or the lake side of the new boathouse. But this allows them to be able to have something to build right on top of, so that the south boundary will be solid on the concrete break wall. The north boundary of the boathouse would be on piles, I'm presuming, down into the lake bed.
So let me get this straight.
Yeah.
He's gonna anchor the boathouse to the retaining wall right here.
On top of
That's correct.
Okay,
So,
I get it.
yeah, so I think, I don't see any problem with that. Anybody has any problem with this issue? So hearing none.
I think Mr. Gagnon has a question, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Gagnon, sorry, I didn't see you.
My only question on that was on part one, the neighboring property will it block the view of that of the people in part one? Is there a house built there?
Nope. It's it's a little lower down. Actually, if you go out to the property, it's higher in that area. See, that's where, okay, so yeah, there you go. So see how the house is lower? Right here. Go up, Mel.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, right. No, sorry. Go to. I wish I had that cursor of yours.
Really? And what would you do with it, sir?
Well, I point you to the house. That's if you see where your circle is.
Yep.
Just below it, there's a little cottage there.
Right there?
No, back up, back there, right there. And this is all pretty high up here. It's actually higher than Mr. St. Denis place.
Yeah,
Okay.
but to maybe answer also Mr. Gagnon's question, when you have a property like that, if you were to do research on it, you don't have a right of view. You can look straight across. This property is on the other boundary.
Yeah.
So as long as the building meets and the boat house is, there's 8 feet walls and the roof and all that, whatever it's entitled, as long as he meets the building code requirement for a boat house on Lake Nipissing, there's no issue about the neighbor not being able to see the lake. I've seen some where sometimes it's at an angle, and
yeah.
So the one who owns part one can only see straight down the property line to the lake, not sideways.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Goodrich?
That's correct. And in this case,
I have no problem with that.
Yeah, the neighbor was circulated and there was no objection from the neighbor.
Yeah, but that just, irregardless, no,
it's something we take into consideration, even though what Norm is saying. I always look at the sight lines.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you can accommodate and make life nicer for the neighbor, that I appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's just, I mean, even if there was an objection that he would want the guy to build his boathouse on the other property line, he cannot force him to move. Right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fern.
Yeah, just on that train of thought, we should have that same philosophy for the sea cans. Look straight ahead.
I mentioned it and somebody made some, I didn't mention it and somebody made some nasty remark on Facebook about me making statements. So I'm staying away from sea can.
And Facebook.
Hey?
And Facebook.
Okay, so joking aside there, I mean, everybody understand the application, everybody in favor, carried.
Okay, people, we're done.
And we'll have to put them some speed because I promised Mrs. Melanie that she could leave at 8, so I guess we'll have to carry the meeting all by ourselves.
Well, I told you guys, I already got my Valentine's Day gift. I didn't have to cook supper for anybody. That's a good deal.
And Dawn left me a slice of pizza here at the office for dinner.
Oh my.
So
nice of you, Dawn.
So we're gonna go home now. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please, to adjourn this meeting?
So just a second.
Your memorandum?
Yeah, the change fee, everybody in favor? Yeah, did you all read that?
The what?
The proposed
memorandum
change in fee to.
Oh shoot, we forgot that.
No, I did not. I did not forget, but I think did everybody read it? Understand it?
Sorry, good thing some of it. I was so excited there to go home. So I hope everybody had an opportunity because this is the most exciting thing that's happened in the planning world in a really long time, which makes me some kind of a weirdo. But I was really excited because I've been waiting for this amendment to the act for about almost my whole life, because we've been, and Paul will attest and Don will attest, every time we get an application for a lot addition to a property that was created by severance, it just creates all kinds of headaches because there was no mechanism to break a severance. And anyways, now we do. So we have the ability now, and you'll probably see a lot of applications come before us. Before we were kind of, I'm going to use MacGyvering it. But now when someone wants to add to a property that is created by consent, there will be a requirement for them to break that consent so that the properties can legally merge and do the appropriate things. But we don't have any fees for these things. And the other things that we, that were brought in as well, there was a few other things that, as I said in my memo, we've been doing them for a long time. We just never charged anything for them. So, it's an opportunity for us to, put some, not that we make $1 million from validation certificates, but we do them once or twice a year. And we never charged anything for them. And there is an administrative cost to taking care of them, memos to council, preparing the agenda. So the fees that I'm suggesting these are new fees. These are not amendments to our existing fees, which that's a conversation we're going to have in the fall to our existing fees for consents and whatnot. But for now, I'm recommending to issue a certificate of consent. So this is a fee. Most municipalities charge an additional fee to, once the severances are created and the plan is done, the lawyers send us the deeds and we have to stamp them and we have to create a certificate and attach it to the deeds. Most municipalities charge a separate fee for this. We've always included it, but it has become, increasing amounts of applications coming across our desks, and more of these are for multiple severances and 2-3 certificates. So I'm recommending a fee of $30 for the stamps on the deeds per. I am recommending a fee of $125 for the certificate of cancellation for a previous consent. I'm recommending a fee of $225 for an amendment to an application. Again, where the application has to be recirculated and redone. I think it's only fair that the administration be covered. And that is if an application comes back for an amendment during the 1 year. So if it's approved and it's approved this way, and at some point in time they say, no, we want to do something different, and it comes back to us, that would be the fee that would be imposed for the amendment. And lastly, the certificates of validation, which is a legal process that we deal with the lawyers. So I'm requesting, I guess, feedback from this committee on these proposed.
And I've looked at that, and maybe for the information of the members, a planning issue, whether it's a planning committee or committee of adjustment, is what you could classify as a user-based process. In other words, it's similar like to water and sewer or garbage collection. It's the people that are deriving a direct benefit for that, and not it's not a general government expense usually. That's why we have the other fees. The items being proposed tonight didn't have a fee before, and they are new legalized process that occurs. And I think we will have to seriously, and that's not our department, but just for information, Mr. Senecal and Mr. Fisher that represent council on this, is that the Mrs. Milani is overworked and understaffed. Because I don't know, but seriously, I don't know if she makes both ends meet, because she's got the clerk's thing to do, like agenda, bylaws, and all that stuff that goes to council. She also looks after the cemetery, and I think we only got 6, so that's not a big job. And and then also she's in charge of tile drainage and municipal drain. So I've seen her out in the middle of farmland, talking with contractor and taking measurement on. So how she managed to put it all together, I don't know. But one thing I can inform you guys, because I've been around for quite a many years, before West Nipissing became in existence, we had an area planning committee. There was 5 different municipalities, like Township and the town of Sturgeon Falls and Casby. And they had a full-time planner and a full-time secretary. They were 2 persons, and that's all they had to do was planning. Or that Mr. Roger Lachance was the planning officer at the time. Now we have a lady that's got 5 different titles, and she's sharing an employee with the building department. Anyway, that information is for the council member, I think, seriously, because if you push employees too far and too lean, mistake will happen, and we'll get in trouble. So that's just my information. So I think, coming back to the fees, I've looked at it and I've made a recommendation and asked Madame Mélanie to put that on tonight, because I think these are fair. They're not exorbitant, $30. The other one, like the amending application, is the same thing as going to a brand new, except the only thing that is common to both is the name and address of the applicant and the property detail. All the rest, she's got to reconfirm everything, meet with the planner like Mr. Goodrich or Don or wherever is acting there. We go, and I guess you guys can see, you can spend a couple of hours here in one afternoon on one application to work out the detail. So the fee, I think, is very reasonable, but now I'm putting that in your hand, whether you want to support that recommendation or not, but I think it's fair.
Well, thank you very much, Monsieur Roberge, for the very kind words. The only thing that I absolutely agree with is that I'm not getting any younger, that's for sure. But anyways, no, so these fees that are being proposed, like I said, they are for services that we either have never provided in the past or for which we've done it for free. Other municipalities are charging these fees, and I think that West Nipissing should be charging for the services that it provides as well. So
Mel?
Yes.
Yes, I got a question. Like, some of these, I guess, doing it that way would eliminate consolidation
yes.
applications?
So if they do, they'll still have to do, their lawyers can still register a PIN consolidation, but by removing the previous consent, I don't have to make it a condition.
Okay.
It'll just merge.
Okay.
So you're okay with that, Mr. Fern?
Yeah.
So can I get a mover and a seconder on the recommendation? Chris?
Mr. Fisher, Roger?
It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Roger Gagnon that bylaw number that the Committee of Adjustment recommends to Council for the West Nipissing Municipality that bylaw number 2011-12 be amended by including fees for the following services, and I won't repeat them.
Okay, so everybody in favor? Carried. Now we'll adjourn. I need a proposer and seconder for the adjournment.
What's the next date?
March 14th.
March 14. I guess Mr. Senecal wants to propose that we adjourn. Yes, he did, and Roger seconded.
It is moved by Denise Senecal and seconded by Roger Gagnon that be it resolved that the West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment meeting is adjourned to March the 14th, 2022.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening. And it's been carried already, Mélanie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good evening.
Bonsoir, puis je m'excuse s'il y en a de vous autres que j'ai gaspillé votre veillée, qu'on parlait trop longtemps. Là, je sais que c'est à Saint-Valentin, mais...
Pas de problème.